We'll call the Apopka City Council November 18th, 2020 meeting to order. We're going to have Commissioner Smith give us the invocation, and we're going to have Tariq Ballard give us the pledge and the fact of the day.
Let's assume the attitude of prayer. Most gracious and almighty Father, we come once again to say thank you. To thank you for all the blessings that thou continue to bestow upon us, realizing that you're the giver of a very good and perfect gift and the creator of all mankind. We ask now, Father, you continue to bless this, our mayor, as he continue to lead this city on to higher height. Bless the councilmen of God, that all the decisions that we make will be pleasing and acceptable in your sight, that they be acceptable to the individuals, to our public, to our citizens, and make a difference in their lives. And as we come tonight to recognize World Diabetes Day, we pray for all those that are battling with this disease, and we pray, Heavenly Father, that you will comfort them and you provide a cure. And we pray, oh God, that all these that are in the midst of this meeting will feel your presence. In thy Son, Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty with justice for all. On November 18th, 1883, precisely at noon, American and Canadian railroads began using uniform time zones. They created 4 continental time zones as a way to eliminate confusion from all of the local time zones created by individual towns. There were thousands of time zones, all based on the movement of the sun, and clocks were usually set based on high noon, the time when the sun is at the highest point in the sky. This created major confusion, with the railroads having to list dozens of timetables based on all the local times. The railroads needed a more uniform timekeeping system. The railroad companies decided to divide the continent into 4 time zones, and Congress officially adopted the railroad time zones in 1918. The time zones they created are very close to the ones we use today.
Thank you, Tariq. Okay. The minutes, any changes we need to make? If not, look for a motion to approve the minutes as read.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Bankson, second by Commissioner Becker. All those in favor?
Smith.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Did I miss you again, Commissioner Smith?
We got that ventriloquy going down here.
Okay. Jamie, you lead us off here with a presentation by the Apopka Youth Council.
Good afternoon, Commissioners and Mayor. Today we have the presentation of your 2020-2021 Youth Council. First, we have Devin, who is going to present and introduce the team, and then we have Hannah that's going to present the presentation that is on your desk in front of you.
Good afternoon. My name is Devin Leith. I'm a senior at Apopka High School, and this is my second year as being a part of Apopka Youth Council. Our group has now grown to 16 members, adding on 7 new people. I don't know if they'll have it up there or not, all of our names. Right here. See, that's all of us. The 16 AYC members represent the following schools: Apopka High, Circle Christian, Montverde Academy, and Wekiva High School. Oh, yeah. Congratulations to you all, and welcome to Apopka Youth Council. I'll hand it off to Hannah now.
Thank you for introducing everyone. All right, hello, good evening, everybody. All right, so, as you heard, my name is Hannah Scarborough, and tonight I will be discussing the Apopka Youth Council's ideas for our city flags, as well as going over our recent events and our new plans for the future. Before I begin, on behalf of myself and my fellow council members, we would like to thank you for this opportunity to be here tonight and to offer our ideas for the city's flags. With that being said, as you can see on the image to my right, tonight we have our first Apopka city flag, and here we wanted to help to inspire in unity, and to do this, we created a design that will remind and reflect our fellow citizens of what it means to be an Apopkan: family, service, and community. As you can see, we tried to demonstrate this with 2 hands reaching across towards each other against a backdrop focused on tomorrow. Especially as Apopka moves forward, we hope that these flags would help maintain these values. In addition to this design, we also considered a slightly different concept in light of the struggles that our country has been facing with the phrase, "United we stand." This way, when a citizen spots one of these flags, they can be reminded that Apopkins can maintain their community together regardless of what we are facing. On the next slides, we have our concepts for the Apopka and Wekiva High School flags. With a similar concept of unity, we hope to inspire these schools towards a team mindset by focusing on what brings them all together. Rather than focus on one individual sport or extracurricular, we chose to feature the blue darter mascot paired with the school's cultural saying, Hokahe. As you can see, we followed a similar pattern for Wekiva. Once again, as we wanted to focus on unity, we placed the school's saying, "Prepare for greatness," against their mascot, the Wekiva Mustangs. With this design, students will be encouraged to handle their high school experience with diligence and a sense of belonging. Before I conclude, I would like to discuss our most recent events. As you know, we recently took on 8 new members. Each applicant was found to be highly qualified candidates with a promising ability to better our Apopka Youth Council. In order to get to know each other better, as well as begin our community work, we decided to begin our new AYC year with a book drive. Together, for the past few weeks, we cleaned and sorted hundreds of books donated to us by Goodwill and managed to do that together. And once we were done, we were able to submit them to several local libraries dispersed around our parks, as well as give them to our local schools. For December, we are planning to revisit our adopted road. We are going to come together to clean it, and if you are interested, you are welcome to come out and see how we take care of our road, as well as to participate if you are interested. I would now like to open up the forum for any questions if you have some.
Questions? Will you give us the day and the times?
The day is yet to be decided. We are currently working on that.
Okay. Commissioner Bankson?
Well, congratulations, first of all. It's great to see several schools coming together and working together, and I think you did a great job on the flags and on the sayings there. That's super.
We're all very proud of it.
Commissioner Smith?
Once again, I'd like to say congratulations, and we're glad to see the growth in the Youth Council, and we look forward for great things out of all of you.
Commissioner Becker?
Yeah, I mean, welcome to the new folks to the club. Really make the most of it. I mean, focus on that first flag that you all came up with, the service and the community aspect of things. I mean, what better way to serve the community than to come together as young folks and do these types of projects? Well, I guess the question for the flags, where are these going to be presented?
Well, we're working on that. We hadn't got
Okay.
that all figured out.
No, but these
Yeah.
look fantastic, though. Yeah, great job.
All right. Thank you for your time.
What's that? You want to get a picture?
Okay.
Why don't we do this? Why don't y'all come up and you want to just get it from there, Jamie? We'll just, if y'all come on up and we'll kind of, and then flip around and she'll, now just stay right there. Just turn around there and then she'll just get you the picture from, since you guys are all wearing masks, that should be.
One, two.
Good. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, guys, and as the council progresses, we'll continue to update you guys each and every time we have an update.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Good job. Okay. Chief McKinley. Can't see without them, can you?
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, Mr. Bass. Here today just to give a brief overview of the accreditation process that we just went through and remind you all in the community of what the accreditation process is and what it means to the community and the police department. So accreditation has long been recognized as a means of maintaining the highest standards of professionalism. Accreditation is the certification by an independent reviewing authority that an entity has met specific requirements and prescribed standards. Schools, universities, and hospitals are some of the most well-known organizations that are required to maintain accreditation. Law enforcement agencies in Florida can attain accreditation status through the Commission for Florida Law Enforcement Accreditation. In 2007, the Florida Police Chiefs Association signed a resolution supporting the Commission and its standards. The process: an agency must apply to the Commission for Florida Law Enforcement Accreditation to participate in the accreditation process. The agency will be required to demonstrate compliance with all applicable mandatory standards, there's over 100 of them, and not less than 80% of the applicable non-mandatory standards. We met 94% of the non-mandatory standards, and the ones that we didn't meet were only because it wasn't something that applied to our agency. So, proof of compliance with the standards is determined by an assessment team sent by the Commission, conducting a formal review of the agency's policies, procedures, and practices. Agencies remain accredited for a period of 3 years. After the 3-year period, they must be reaccredited. In 2017, the Apopka Police Department applied to participate in the accreditation process. On November 1st, 2017, the police department achieved its first accreditation status. The benefits of accreditation: provides a professional review of agency operations, personnel, practices, and training policies by an outside entity, ensures policies and procedures are documented in writing and defendable, increases community support through transparency of operations, assurance agency personnel are trained and functioning according to agency policies and procedures. It reinforces the agency's ability to maintain the highest standards of professional law enforcement service, strengthens the agency's defense against lawsuits and complaints, establishes a framework of systems that ensures a quality work environment for well-trained professionals that aids in retaining and recruiting qualified personnel. One of the other benefits that's not listed here is, we know what's going on across the country, and the president's put out some standards. I've learned recently that the federal government's looking at the Florida accreditation standards as a national model. So we already meet those standards. The standards that have come out from all these commissions, we already meet those because of our accreditation standards. The agency, agency reaccreditation. The agency's first reaccreditation is often the most difficult. Over the 3 years after the initial accreditation, the agency must implement and maintain many changes to policies and practices that sometimes can be a significant change in the way the agency used to do business. So we've gone through a significant change when we became accredited, and we must show proof and have proofs documented in files that we're following the procedures and the compliance requirements within the accreditation guidelines. One of the things about using Power DMS is the accreditation process also uses Power DMS, and that allows them access to our policies and procedures so they can review them before our accreditation process, and it allows us to download what the requirements are into our system also. This documentation consists of items such as detailed training files showing mandatory training was completed, documentation showing commission-recommended policy changes have been implemented. Currently, there are 387 law enforcement agencies in the state of Florida, of which only 174 or 45% of them are accredited. On October 15th, 2020, the Apopka Police Department received their first reaccreditation from the Commission. That is a great accomplishment. Like I said, the first reaccreditation is always your toughest because it does change the way that you do business, and we've been able to document and show for the last 3 years that we've maintained those standards for the entire 3 years. It's not just saying that you can show proof that you maintain that. You have to have documents for the last 3 years that you maintained and you did things such as, our drug inventory for our canine dogs has to be checked quarterly now, and we have to have documentation, a memo to me, signed memo by me. It has to be in the file for every quarter that we did that. So all that documentation has to be in place. So the accreditation process is a team effort that requires everyone's participation. It is not something we work on every 3 years. The accreditation process is entwined in our daily activities to ensure we are providing a high level of service to our community. During the reaccreditation process, the assessors not only interview agency staff, they also interview numerous members of the agency to ensure everyone is meeting the accreditation requirements. I want to thank the mayor, commissioners, and the city administrator for your continued support of the accreditation process. I also want to thank my staff and all the men and women of the Apopka Police Department for their continued commitment to the accreditation process. They go down and they interview officers. This year, because of COVID, they would call the officers. And they ask them questions, and they have a set list of questions. Those officers have to answer those questions based on what our policies are, our practices are, and our procedures are. One of the things we did learn this year is we had some policies that made perfect sense to us, but when you have an outside assessor come in and read the policy, they weren't clear on what the policy said. So these reviews help us make sure that our policies are in clear language for everybody to read and understand. I'd also like to give a special thanks to our accreditation manager, Lieutenant Carol McMaster. She works hard every day to ensure that we maintain compliance, and she keeps all these files. She's looking at the new changes that the commission makes every quarter when they meet all year long, and make sure that our policies are in compliance with those things. So that's a quick overview and what it does. We're proud of the accomplishment, and we, again, thank you for your support of it. Thank you.
Commissioner Becker, anything?
Questions? Wait, there you go.
No, I completely agree with the difficulty it is it's difficult enough to do it the first time, but yeah, to your point, the first kind of recycling and trying to get it again is usually that most difficult, and because people haven't built muscle memory around all those different things that it takes to be accredited that first go around. So it's a testament to you and your leadership and the police department. Proud to have those that serve our city. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Commissioner Smith?
I want to say thank you to all the men and women that serve on the Apopka Police Department for the service they provide to our community. And I know it's a great task not to keep doing things the same old way. So we appreciate what you're doing, and we hope that we can continue to be accredited here in the city of Apopka.
We will continue. That's my commitment to this city and to the men and women of the Apopka Police Department. We will continue. Everybody is committed to this. It's one of the things the assessor said that, the commitment obviously starts from the top, and I'm 110% committed to the accreditation process, but they were impressed by the commitment at the line level, too, of all the men and women at the Apopka Police Department and their commitment to the accreditation process to make sure that we maintain professional standards and serve this community like it deserves to be served.
Thank you.
Yeah, it just speaks of the excellence in which I've seen, obviously, working with the department in the past with the chaplaincy, and of course, I know how hard Carol has worked when she was assigned that project. So, and to carry that through, it's one thing to say, this is what we want to do. It's another thing to do it consistently, and so it breeds confidence and excellence in our city. So, thank you.
Thanks for what you do there, Chief.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, next up, Chief Wylam. Financial update on the fire department.
Right on the top here, and then you got to use those to switch.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, members of the public, Mr. Bass. Sean Wylam, Fire Chief of Apopka Fire Department. Tonight, I want to give you a little update in regards to the fire department and some of the financial things that have happened during the past year. Kind of echo what Chief McKinley started with. I really want to just publicly thank our entire department through this past year. It's been a very trying year with the COVID pandemic, and I'm very proud of all of our men and women with our department and the diligence they showed throughout this entire year. It's been rough, to be honest, and you'll see through some of this presentation what we've had to deal with. I also want to thank my staff, my command staff, for their hard work this year and helping to reevaluate some of our processes and policies and procedures to help us improve our overall efficiency, which is what we're trying to do. One of the main goals I wanted to establish when I came in. And also city staff for their assistance, as well as we all know this is definitely a group effort through a lot of this. So, one of the things we came in and did was redo our mission statement, our vision statement, and a big part of our mission statement is our organization prides herself and guided by the moral, ethical principles and fiscal responsibility. That's a big part of it. We want to make sure that we're stewards for our taxpayers, and when it comes to these uncertain times especially, we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing. We're a $12 million a year operation, so we need to make sure that we're fiscally responsible. It's a big thing. Reasons why we want to make sure we're establishing this and getting our riding the ship and getting things going in the right direction is for future growth. We have a lot of growth coming to our city. We have a lot of different developments coming in, and we're going to need to come to you guys for more personnel and more, resources in the future. And we've established these good habits now. That's going to ensure that we control that growth in the future and making sure we're doing it the right way. So, first one we're going to go over is overtime. I know exactly a year ago I came to you guys with the operational changes, some of the things we wanted to tweak a little bit with our personnel, putting more people at Station 1 where we're more densely populated, and kind of show you where we're at with that. So basically, our overtime is separated between suppression and EMS divisions, 2120 and 2130. Suppression, we have about $75,000 allotted each year for that, for overtime. EMS, we have $185,000 overtime. So our total allotted amount for overtime is $260,000 a year. So easiest way to track that, again, with trends and things like that, is take 100% of our overtime budget, divide it in 12 months, and look at that. If we're right in that range of 8.3% per month, we're right in that threshold, we're doing pretty good. That's just the way we can measure that. So as you can see, I like to use the laser. The top, again, when we came to you last year in October and November, that's what I was noticing is we were using 12.3% in October, and 20%, it was shooting up to 20% use of our overtime budget for that year. Really high, obviously. Things we wanted to reevaluate. When we made the adjustments, which we started that in December, you noticed that it dropped to 8.6, and then the following month, 7.3. So we really started seeing that trend going down as far as our overtime usage. Obviously, February and March, we all know what started to happen. COVID pandemic hit, different things like that. And you really see that drop again in April. It was coming back down to, again, the higher numbers peaking in July. So when we look at that on a graph, you can kind of see that, again, that threshold. We were really doing well starting our program off, and then you can see the numbers as COVID started to kick off, and obviously went high after that through the 9 months. But interesting thing to look at is this is the actual state numbers for COVID throughout the year. And you can see that really that trend line really follows those number of cases in Florida. So something that we wanted to make sure we're keeping track of. What you have to understand, starting in February, we actually had our first asymptomatic personnel. We were doing some testing and found that they were actually showing some possible signs for COVID. So those people, actually, starting in February, we had to start using some of our overtime, more than we normally would use. 3 were actually out for travel restrictions. We even had, we've been through it, but the CDC had different requirements. It seemed like a different day was a different set of rules that we had to comply with, and dealing with that. In March, we actually had our first employee with symptoms. Even though he or she was not COVID positive, they still show the symptoms. So we cannot allow them to work in this time, unfortunately, even if they show those symptoms. So no matter what, we've been having to deal with it. Thus far, we've had 25% of our firefighter workforce has been confirmed positive. That's a big number. 40% have been affected by illnesses with COVID symptoms. Again, something we still have to deal with. 300 diagnostic COVID tests were given to our department throughout this whole thing so far. At one point we had to test our entire department in less than 24 hours to find our starting point to move forward. You have to understand the average recovery time for anyone, even if they're asymptomatic versus symptomatic, was 10 days. So that's about 2.5 shifts per personnel that was out. So we're dealing with some unique times, to say the least, and something that we wanted to make sure that we were doing the best we can. And believe it or not, symptomatic patients could come back quicker than asymptomatic patients because we actually had a time frame where we can tag when their symptoms started. So a lot of this stuff, we're dealing with that. So in 2019-20, we used 202% of our overtime budget. Something seems high, but during a pandemic, not something I like, but it's just what we had to deal with. We also had a lot of other employees out, and to kind of explain, numerous days, our minimum manning is 29 personnel for all 6 stations. We had numerous days shifts where we had to hire 16 people because of the effects and number of people that were out at the same time. So 16 of the 29 we had to hire just to maintain our staffing levels. Again, I want to thank our personnel for their diligence and commitment to the city because it was challenging, to say the least. I'm happy to say that we never had to lower our standard, never lowered our minimum manning because of our hard work of our people. That's a lot of people, obviously. Line of light duty also throughout the year. Believe it or not, we had 9 people out this year for non-COVID, just injuries. We had 3 shoulder surgeries. We had 2 broken ankles. We've had a broken leg. Multiple people out for long stints of time too. So on top of that, 202% was used this year. Luckily, we've been working hard with Jamie and the finance team. We were able to recover a lot of that money back from CARES Act monies and things like that. So we're through mid-August was our last, that we just turned in some last week as well. So we were able to recover about $91,000 back so far. We're still pursuing that and making sure we're working through that as well. So that $91,000 is about 35% of our total overtime budget. So during this pandemic and during this year, we've used an overage of 67%, so 167% of our overtime. Compared that to the year before, though, we used 278% of our overtime. Again, something we were really wanting to adjust and look at. So even with the pandemic and a lot of different things, we reduced our overtime significantly. It's about $135,000 difference between fiscal year 18-19 to fiscal year 19-20. And then $91,000 we recoup from the CARES money, gives us a total of $226,000 swing that we were able to recover and get back. Another thing, Orange County contract, with this, big thing about that is we all know we're covering part of Station 29 and some other areas we're providing assistance to Orange County. The original negotiation started with that. We're only for 75% of the MSTUs for the area. Because of change in city administration and some other negotiations, we're actually able to increase that to 100%. So last year's invoice was for $497,000. So that money right there, that increase is about $124,000. We also had additional that we were able to get there. The big one, again, Change Healthcare, our change in our billing companies. What we're going to show you here is some differences in trends and numbers, and we're trying to do the best we can to do an apples-to-apples comparison between the two companies. But for our rate changes, even if you remember last year, we implemented our new rate changes as far as transports, things like that, and also the trend changes. So basically, the best way to compare apples to apples is projected additional billable revenue. We want to make sure we're looking at the billables revenue, which is the gross. What we're actually working on currently, too, is eventually collections. We're actually researching that. We're going to come back to you in a future date to discuss, some of those things. We've reached out to several agencies. Things like the department action plans, timelines, how long we're going to wait till we send someone to collections. Reasonable collection efforts, account adjustments for militaries, hardships, things like that. There's all kinds of different things we're researching to see that's out there. That's another presentation another time, so that's coming in the future. But again, this chart here shows our actual billable calls for 2019 and 20. So you can see each line. Starting in November, you'll see that the numbers are a little bit lower. We were still transitioning from NEB to the new Change Healthcare. So you'll see those numbers in beginning of November, and then you see some catch-up numbers in December and as we started progressing through the year. But we basically had 6,659 billable calls or transports for our agency. Of those, 4,119 were ALS, and 2,540 were BLS. So when we look at that, this next slide here shows you also the trend. And we're going to talk about a couple different numbers here, and I'm going to start lining up some stuff. But NEB, the previous trend for them that we noticed throughout the years and some of the information they were giving us is they were billing at a 38% ALS rate and a 62% BLS rate. Well, that's one of the things when change first came to us. They said this is, an agency like yours that is transport capable, different things like that, should be more to a 62% ALS and a 38% BLS. So almost the opposite of what we were being billed with the old agency. And that is the true national trend, even for an agency like ours. So if you see that first column upper right, or I'm sorry, upper left, this side right here, we have our ALS calls, again, with that 38%. So that's the 2540 that we're establishing for them. At our new rate, $863 is our current charge that we charge for ALS transports. So that gives us a gross of about $2.1 million. On the other, to the right, you'll see the BLS calls, which now our rate is $524 for one of those, is about $2.1 million. If you go down below, you're going to see their old rates. Again, this is just showing our comparison when we get to the different rate changes. You'll see the same number applied, but you'll see a difference there. The old rate we used to have was $600 for residents and $675 for non-residents. Well, it's another thing when change came in, they said we actually can't charge different for a resident versus a non-resident rate. So it's something we had to change. So you'll see the two differences there at the bottom. The 1.5 is for the 600, and the 1.7 million is for the non-resident at 675 per transport. To make an apples-to-apples comparison, I wanted to make sure that we had one number. So at the bottom, you'll see there, what I did is just average the 600 and the 675 to give this the $637 per transport. And that's being really conservative, because if you think about it, we transport a lot more residents than we do non-residents. So when we're looking at this number, it's a conservative number. So that generates the 1.6 on NEB on the old rate and 2.2 million for the BLS with the new rate there. So if we compare that to change, now our ALS calls, 4,000 calls there with the applicable new rate, that's $3.5 million in a, oh, sorry. Any glasses? $3.5 million with the, again, new trend and that new rate, so that's 3.5. To the right, again, the new trend with change is 1.3 million with those applicable there. Again, the old rate, we did the same process basically for NEB, and you can see the numbers there. I'm getting more into detail here in a minute. But basically, again, averaging that the non-resident and resident transport rate down at the bottom yields us 2.6 million for the old rate with the new trend. So let's make some sense of this. What I did next was take both of those, combine them together, so now you have NEB with everything, and I just took out that middle section, so we just had the average rates at the bottom now. And then the bottom is change with those same applicable changes. So how do we do this? Let's look at the new rate versus the old rate. So what we're going to do is take new change numbers and just apply the rates themselves. So without changing our rate, or by changing our rate, how much are we actually looking at in a difference here? So that's by taking these two numbers. So we take our current trend and rate with NEB and less the old average rate from them, which gives us an excess of $928,000, basically. Do that same thing with the BLS side. So now you take that, and we're actually less $34,000. That's because, again, that swing, or the difference in the BLS versus ALS transports. So that gives us a gross difference of $894,000 approximately. Again, good swing just by changing our rates. That's a benefit we're seeing. Next, we're going to look at the new trend and rate versus the old trend and the new rate. So again, by looking at change in the ALS calls, lessing the NEB ALS calls, we have an excess of $1.3 million in ALS calls. Same thing on the BLS side. We take the, again, new trend and rate less the old trend and new rate. So we're able to look at just our trends here now. So just in the trend difference, we're seeing a $535,000 difference, and just by changing the companies and trend. So overall, now we take the overall look at it, we have the $3.5 million, and you less the old trend and the old rate, it gives us an excess of $1.9 million. Same thing on the BLS side, now we're less $883,000. So that gives us a total difference of about $1,052,444 per year. We're seeing a swing by changing our rates and changing our trends, the ALS versus BLS. Now, definitely positive. Now, how do we compare that? How do we look at it? What's exciting to me is what the next 5-10 years is going to look like, you know, if we're able to have this excess money. So what I did was actually took a 10-year chunk looking backwards to see where we could be. So you see here on this column, I took the call volume increase and just deducted it out of each year. So basically, if you look at 2017 to 2018, there was a 2% increase in our call volume. Does that make sense? How we kind of less those numbers out. So that gave us a grand total over the last 10 years of approximately an extra $8.9 million in gross we could have had. So looking forward in the future, it's definitely something that's exciting. Another thing to change has helped us do is the public emergency medical transport. And I know Chief Sanchez went into some detail over this, so I'll go over it. I don't believe Commissioner Bankston was here for that, so just kind of review. But it's a supplemental reimbursement program. It was established in October of 2015. Our state implemented it back in October 20th of 2016, but it's a certified public expenditure program that allows us, it gives $3.5 million to public entities who basically on the Medicaid side only. So what we have to do is identify specific patients that are Medicaid patients, and we're actually able to recoup some of that money that we've spent, and it's a process. When I say it's a process, we have to make sure that our T's are crossed, our I's are dotted. We have to go through, first to qualify for it, we have to make sure, obviously we provide EMS services to recipients. We have to be enrolled as a Medicaid, Florida Medicaid provider. That was a thing we had to deal with. We actually found that the city of Apopka was not registered as the Medicaid provider. It was actually under our previous city administrator himself, which was a legal thing we had to jump through. We had to obviously be, which we are a city municipality, so we qualify there. We have to certify that each claimed expenditure for EMT services are federally financial, they're eligible for federal financial participation, just part of that. ACA, which we all know is a big name in the healthcare world, they're the ones who really certify us in the end and qualify for this money. We have to submit this data. We have to make sure that we keep and maintain these records. And then we have to, again, that report has to be done on a state fiscal year. So we have to kind of tweak how we're looking at things and transfer different years and look at stuff like that. What we are able to do is look back, and because of the change, we have a lot of this documentation now. We could go back and look at it and prove that we can, that what cost us how much it costs per transport, how much it costs us to just run, and how much we're able to recoup. So what we found, again, and this is some of the compliances we have to follow to make sure we're going through that Medicaid reimbursement cost. CMS provider reimbursement manuals, we have to, certain chapters we have to follow that. This is a lot of stuff we need to make sure. Again, once they accept it, the committed submitted cost report, we actually have to submit a questionnaire as well, or vet it out. So basically, we're turning in the previous year. It gets a little confusing because of the state, the timeline with the state and things like that. So the state fiscal year runs from July to the next June. So again, breaking all that down. That's why when it says by November 30th, it kind of throws off, because we're really turning in, like we literally just turned in this last year's PMT thing. And again, the target distribution will be, even though they say September, it's usually around March. So we'll receive in March this year what we put in for last year. The other side of it, because we did qualify for the PEMT, is the PEMT MCO. So it's just another kind of branch of this, but it includes all the, pretty much the HMOs, things like that, that the other ones that didn't qualify for. So it's another avenue. Because we qualified for one, we can actually participate in the other. We did about 86 transports that qualified for PEMT the last year. So the 2019-20 PMT recovered was $48,000. The MCO money was $84,970. Another thing, because of change in what we're participating in, we're actually able to get $19,000 towards COVID cares and some of that Medicaid money as well. So we actually got that money already back as well. So in total, an additional $152,000 we got this year back just by doing what we're supposed to do and report and things like that. So another positive with the PEMT programs. Another thing that happened recently, one of the things we've been, again, I've been wanting to harp on is just proficiency in how we operate, how we do things. The city was able to purchase a new program, Power DMS, which Chief McKinley uses a lot for the accreditation process, but now it's citywide. That's caused us to be able to go back and look and really get some of our policies and procedures tweaked, really look at our files, start doing stuff. And one of the things that kind of popped up is we noticed our supplemental compensation. So U.S. Fire Administration developed what's called FESHI, or Fire Emergency Services Higher Education. And the State Fire Marshal has long been involved with it as well. But basically, this is money that all of our personnel who have degrees get money from the state weekly. And in order to be eligible to do that, you have to be a certified firefighter. You have to have a degree in fire science, emergency management, EMS, something related to our field, basically, that the state gives us money for, and be employed as a full-time firefighter. Well, when we started going through this and updating some of our policies and procedures, we noticed something that wasn't happening. Quarterly reporting. Every quarter, we're supposed to report all of our people who are qualified for that. Red flag came up. We're like, and we contacted the state. We had not reported since 2014. So our guys and girls were still getting their money from the city, but we were not getting that reimbursement back from the state since 2014. So we worked with the state, got with them, figured everything out. So we are able to recuperate this year $134,000 back from the state that we're going to get back. And I'm happy to say that the state is told that we're supposed to be getting it any day from the Department of Revenue. They're going to be one check for us. So that's something that's pretty exciting there for us. So all in all, the supplemental comp program, some of the savings overtime, the contracts, PMT programs, we have an additional $638,000 we're looking at. Again, projected billable revenue, $1,052,000 for a grand total of 1.6 kind of swing we're looking at from looking in the future. So it's something, again, we're trying to do what we can, where we can, and get through all this together. So if you have any questions. Oh, one more thing that I'm happy to say. and want to make sure you all are aware of it. Lowe's actually donated a grill for Station 5 recently. So that's something I just want you guys to be aware of. We're very proud, of course, for any of our partnerships, but we're happy for them and very appreciative for them.
Commissioner Vincent?
I think it just underscores the importance of the administrative side, and a lot of time I don't think the public, most people think of that. They think of the firefighter and riding the truck and rushing into the fire, the action side of it, but this is a tremendous job in pursuing those things. This would have just been continued lost revenue, and so, excellent job to the department. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith?
Well, I'd just like to say the department and staff to be commended for an outstanding job in making sure that our taxpayers is getting the best bang for their buck, and we are recovering revenue that's available to us. And so we want to thank you and commend you for an outstanding job.
There's a team effort.
Just a real quick question on the last slide there. I was a little bit confused. It says overtime 226, and it's listed as a revenue?
Well, I'm sorry, yeah,
Savings.
it's just a difference between
Savings.
yeah, I guess it's from the one year to the other.
I'm confused, sorry. What do you mean it's savings from one year to the next?
Well, the last year, previous year, we'd spent 273% of our overtime budget. This year, we've been able to cut that number by the $226,000, or almost 100%. It's not really revenue, it's just
Yeah, savings.
I see, okay, I see, so I'm just trying to follow the trail here. So 278 and 1819 was your percentage that you quoted as over allocation of your overtime budget, and then 1819 it was 202 prior to CARES being applied to, which brings it down to 166.
Yep.
So that's the walk that you're trying to do there. Okay, so it's a savings versus revenue. And in terms of the CARES Act funding or reimbursement, is that exhausted, or is there any additional opportunity there?
I think it's done. Edward is.
I know we turned in some last week. Right?
Last week was the last CARES money,
Okay.
or last invoice for CARES money.
Yes, we did a last filing, I think it was October 31st. October 30th was our last chance to apply, and we got everything in by that date.
Okay,
So-
So there's additional.
So there should be some more additional monies coming.
gotcha. Because the 202% would be about $525,000 that we spent in year for overtime total. And then you net out the COVID or the CARES Act. I would assume to get CARES funding, you have to draw a direct line to it having a COVID impact. But that represents about 18% of that 525, the 91,000. So I know that you said there was other injuries and stuff like that, and I know that we've had some attrition as well. So is some of that overtime that's non-COVID related also attributable to those types of scenarios? Or is it just kind of, and I go back to the trend line that you showed. So we had 278 last year, 202 this year. You really can't develop a trend in a 2-year period, but like prior to that, so like 17, 18 or 16, 17, were we around the 200%? Is that just kind of status quo? Do we just need to budget better? I mean, how does that work?
No, the years before were actually right in line where we were supposed to be. That increase of 278% was for us to simply just operate. And that's just not, we can't move forward with that. So some of the changes we made, that was what I was kind of showing what that trend line was. When we were doing things correctly, when we had before COVID and a lot of other things, we were going down that right. We were underneath that 8.3%. And then unfortunately, this is cost of doing business, during a pandemic. And certainly that's why I made sure I mentioned those other factors. There are other factors, but even with all those other factors and dealing with the pandemic, we, had a savings of $226,000. That's a lot in 1 year.
Right. I just, with that percentage of COVID related specifically, obviously there's other contributing factors to why the overtime budget was over. So I just want to make sure that, and then I guess at the end of the day, what's the net here? What, how did you finish the year in terms of a budget? What's the takeaway? Did you go on budget? Did you have, what's the ultimate conclusion here?
As far as
Your budget.
maybe.
Like what should I glean from the presentation? I mean, did you hit the mark? I mean, were you over budget? I mean, what's the kind of the story for last year's performance?
Overtime, we were certainly over. I mean, there's no
Right.
denying that. But as far as total budget, we were certainly, looked at other things, and we were right in line with where we should be.
Because I mean, anything budget, right? Maybe over in some areas, under in others.
Correct.
But at the end of the day, if overall those funds for suppression and EMS are in line, or, chief fund is in line, then, obviously we're in line.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, I think what's amazing, if you take, the CARES money, change money, that the differential between NEV and CARE and change, you're talking about enough money that we could have built Station 5, 6, and 7 with the dollars that we left on the table over the last 10 years or something. So it's incredible, and I know that, you had a challenging year with overtime, but I know you've got the team in place,
Yeah.
you've got the schedules in place that the 8.3% is something
Yeah.
you can hit.
Oh, yeah, certainly, we're still dealing with COVID now. Just to kind of, we had, a week before last, we had one person out. The week before that, we still had 3 people out. So we've all seen the numbers and things like that. We're bracing for impact.
And so just going forward, we'll probably maybe not next commission meeting, but the next one, we need to go over our policy on collections because we don't have one. And so you need to start thinking about one of the things that the chief brought up is that we can't differentiate between resident, non-resident, but we could differentiate somebody that's, Medicare versus non-Medicare, an age.
Yep.
But that's about it. And so what do we, where do we go? Because it's something we need to at least have a policy for, not just a random collection. Chief, thank you, sir.
All right,
Appreciate
thank
your
you.
help. Okay, Edward, any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes to the agenda, Mayor.
Okay. Susan? Sure.
Good evening. I'm David Hoffman, live at Rock Springs Ridge, Tayside Court. Many years ago, actually the period of 2009 to 2014, Rock Springs Ridge residents concerned about the closing of the South 9 at the golf course were assured again and again by city officials and HOA board officers that there were several hurdles that would absolutely prevent the golf group from ever building and developing more residential homes beyond what had been specified, 1 home per acre, once a community was built out. Our community is built out. These hurdles, etched in stone, we residents were led to believe, include 1, Florida State green space provisions, 2, St. Johns River Water District water usage and drainage restrictions, 3, Orange County land use restrictions, and of course, 4, the firewall protection called the PUD. However, since 2014, this mantra has essentially disappeared from our public discussion. What happened to the green space provisions? What happened to the sanctity of the flood mitigating retention areas? Good question, if you do not mind my saying so, in view of a recent City Hall speaker's highlighting of the increasingly prevalent flooding at various locations in Apopka. What has happened and may very well continue to happen to our protective warranty called the PUD. It is interesting to note that the city apparently no longer uses the PUD label, replacing it with PD. What is the meaning of this change? Furthermore, is it true that the city, through comprehensive plan amendment, has made it easier to modify or reconstitute what was referred to as a PUD? A PUD, or any zoning for that matter, must be considered a trust, an agreement, a pact, an understanding between elected officials who are responsible for enforcement and community citizens who rely on zoning as a protective measure against unwanted intrusion and development in our neighborhoods. An important provision in any community, an undergirder of democracy. An outgrowth of this discussion is a key question. What is a typical step-by-step timeline for a zoning change application to be vetted and voted on at City Hall? A recent Apopka chief editorial invoked the fine reputation of the iconic and late Mayor John Land to stress the importance of public officials and presumably all citizens to, quote, do the right thing, unquote. Mayor John Land was touted for his practice of doing just that, the right thing. Although the editorial did not venture into specifics of exactly what is the right thing, I will take the liberty to offer an interpretation of this fine admonition. I would urge Apopka city officials, elected officials, to do the right thing by continually practicing and upholding democracy, justice, and fairness, abiding by the interests and wishes of their constituents, the voters, the taxpayers, the citizens, the children, and the homeowners and renters citywide. This plea projects special resonance for Rock Springs Ridge residents who are under siege by an ambitious, wealthy, and powerful out-of-town...
Thank you, Mr. Hoffman. We appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you. And I thought you were coming up here to apologize to Mr. Rodriguez. I'm sorry, but we appreciate your comments. Thank you. Okay, Susan, anybody else?
We do have one that, an online one, that will read into the record. Hello, Commissioners and Mayor Nelson. The city currently has an employee running the HR department who does not have the HR experience and does not have the required degree in the to be the HR operations manager. When will the city of Apopka hire a qualified HR director? I have employees contacting me on my Facebook page, making me aware of allegations that they have reported in the past to HR that have not been investigated.
Thank you, Susan. All right. Consent agenda. Does anybody need to pull any of the items off the consent agenda? If not, I'll look for a motion to approve the consent agenda as read.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Bankson,
Second.
second by Commissioner Becker. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Edward, are you doing the PTO?
This is, Chief kind of had a great lead-in for this. It was not planned, I will tell you that. This item this was not a plan. But the item that you have before you, Commissioners, our current personnel policy for our employees allows a maximum amount of PTO hours that are allowed to be carried over each year. And at the end of the year, on December 30th, those hours have to come down to a maximum number that is allowed to be carried forward. And they're different hours based on the employees, based on the time. And I want to point out that Commissioner Smith gave me a lesson. He was my teacher this week, and found a discrepancy in the staff report that I just want to kind of make clear. It's a little Scrivener's error, but a 40-hour employee is an 8-hour, a 10-hour, or a 12-hour employee. That's for someone who earns 40 hours a week, they can be an 8-hour, a 10-hour, or 12-hour employee. A 56-hour a week, an employee who earns PTO that has a week's worth of PTO, 56 hours would be the average of a 24, 48-hour employee, which is a firefighter. So I wanted to make sure that's clear in this staff report, that you understand as the staff report. So one of the issues that I bring this forward is, and the chief led into it, we've had with COVID and everything that we've had going on, we've had a lot of employees who were not able to take some of their vacation during the times that they wanted to. They had to fill in spots for others to make sure that 25% reduction we had to fill in and make sure that things were covered. And we appreciate all that they've done. There's also the fire or the police department. We've had some employees, that did that as well. And unfortunately, weren't able to use some of their vacation time like they would like to, and based on those maximum numbers, they will lose at December 30th If they don't take enough time between now and the end of the year, they will lose those hours. But as you know, we have to have staff every day, so we can't let everybody go, all in the last month of the year. So what I'm asking tonight is to allow those employees to carry over, the 40-hour work week employee to carry 40 hours if they have, if they don't reach if they reach that max, allow them to carry up to 40 hours forward and use it in the next calendar year. And then a 24, 48, or a firefighter, allow them to carry 56 hours. So this will allow an extra week, allow those that have that time that are at that cap to carry an extra week forward into next year of vacation time. This is a one-time just for this year. We'll revert back to our normal cutoff things per the policy in 22, depending on kind of where we are at that time. But this is, so basically asking for your approval to allow them to carry a week for those individuals who were not able to use a lot of their time. And I will tell you that that 50% of those employees are fire department employees, and most of it is related to the coverage that they had to do during COVID.
Any questions, Mr. Becker?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I know that we're under some special circumstances here. Does the outside of just the business at hand, just in terms of general, what's the average kind of PTO pot of hours that a typical employee carries at any given time?
So you want to know, like you're asking, like an average that an average employee would carry
so
forward?
440 some odd hours is a lot, right? It's
Right.
12 weeks. I mean, it's
You're right.
It's
Yeah,
a lot.
and most of those are long-term. A lot of those are long-term employees. You have, at the max level where you are there, you have right at 100. So you have 100 roughly out of 479 that we have. You have 100 that carry that, that are at that
They're
high
at
range.
the max.
They're at the max.
See, that, I mean, and again, this is a discussion for a different day. I guess it's nice to have that as your kind of cushion, but at the same time, we should encourage the employees to take time off, right? I mean, to refresh and recharge and all the stuff that they should be doing, and that's what PTO offers. I'm probably a little bit biased because I come from the private industry, so if this is standard and kind of accepted and on the government side or in the public forum, I guess I get it, but I would encourage the staff to take the PTO. I mean, it's there for a reason.
Right, and we do that. I will tell you that we do. We tell our directors, and the directors know that the employees need to. Now, it's always for their health and well-being. But there are some employees that fall into this category, those 100 employees that fall in this category, that did not take vacations due to COVID, so that they could be, they put their vacations off, or they delayed some time off because of the COVID-19 situation. And so that's why this is a one-time thing that we're looking at. But it is common across jurisdictions to allow carry forward of PTO, and it all, so let me kind of give you some information. It also depends on your years of service. You can carry more, the longer you've been here, the more you can carry. So it kind of rewards those employees who have been around for a long time.
Well, I know I'm not making any friends by anybody watching that's the staff that, I'm moving their cheese, right? So that's not intended. I want to make sure that people are using the PTO because it'll serve themselves as well as the people that they interact with in the city too. I mean,
Absolutely.
there's a benefit to that.
But Edward, I think before we got here, I don't know when they had the change, there was unlimited, right? I mean, there were some people, I know we made a change, or the city made a change several years, and Chief, you got something?
No.
Because I thought there were some people that cashed in big dollars of PTO.
There were some, and we've made, you're right, we have, there are some change, the policy does not allow, it has caps for payout. There's a payout portion. You can elect to have some of your PTO paid out.
But it was
And then,
unlimited, right?
but there was we had a sick leave
Oh.
policy way back.
Oh, okay.
And there are two different ones, and then we went from we used to have what we called vacation and sick. It was put together and called PTO, and you can use it for sick or vacation. You decide how you're going to use it throughout the year. And that's when we had there were some changes made to that sick leave because there were some huge payouts that the liability was just, the city, it wasn't sustainable by the city. But that was changed years ago for that reason.
Chief Wylam?
Yeah, So just kind of, I'm a little biased because I'm a fire guy, but, something specific to us, why a lot of guys and girls for our department hold that over is in case of an injury or something that's unwork related. So most people, on average, I think it starts at 324 hours you can carry over. Myself, I've been here 18 years, I can actually carry over 384 hours. If I was on shift, it happened to me, I broke my leg years ago. If I did not have that reserve in place, I would have literally not gotten paid. So a lot of guys carry that cushion kind of from year to year, more on the public safety side, because if we're hurt, we simply can't work. So that's a lot of
I
reasons.
think that's an Aflac ad.
Aflac, but it's kind of explain, why a lot of those people do carry over those hours, is because it's kind of a cushion. And you think about a 24-hour shift, that goes quickly. 384 hours goes pretty quick.
Commissioner Smith?
Well, I'm in support of them having the opportunity to carry it over. I guess I come from the public sector world as well, and even in education. I think during the 40 years, I probably took maybe 2 weeks off in sick leave because I enjoyed my job. So I just didn't take time off, just be taking time off. So fortunately, we were able to carry all of our time over, and there was no limit. So I have no problem with extending this opportunity for our employees, and especially when they're not taking the time in order to provide service and protection for our community.
Yeah, I go back to the purpose of it is because of the COVID issues, and that's what created that. And as you said in your presentation, many of them had to work hours because there were those who could not because of COVID, different things like that. So to me, I think it's a justified thing. And, again, there's an end date there on that. We don't know what the next year will hold, but, hopefully we're moving in the right direction. We continue to. But I think for those reasons, I'm in favor of that.
Okay. We'll need a motion to approve the extra 1 year of PTO, and this is for 1 year for 2020. or
1
rolling-
week. 1 week, Mayor.
But this 1 year too?
Yes,
Un-
1
yeah.
week to
This
be
year.
for 2021, January 1 of 2022, we will be back to our normal
Right.
levels.
So if we get a
So
motion,
moved.
got a motion by Commissioner Smith.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Bankson. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, Edward, are you back up for
Just me.
surplus? Or is that
Jim's doing
Jim, you're doing that? Okay, yes, I'm sorry.
All set? So this is a kind of a continuation of discussion that we had regarding some city-owned properties. Staff has identified, actually, we got one more property to discuss regarding surplusing property. Although it is real, it's considered real property, it doesn't actually have to go through a bid process. We found out through our illustrious attorney. Thank you. Edward and I were discussing it. We thought, let's go ahead and consider it surplus, since that was one of the processes that we used on a couple other prior properties, one of which we had already sold, the Marshall Lake property. And then also to discuss the sale process for these city-owned properties. At this time, we've got 4 different properties that we've identified. The first one is one that you're very familiar with, which is the Park Avenue and Sandpiper property, taking out the road right-of-way. It brings it down to about 8.093 acres. And that'll allow us to realign Sandpiper East and Sandpiper East. It's basically on each side of the road in order to be able to put a traffic light there, since we are getting a lot of traffic flow through at rush hour time. That's this property here. As you can see, it's this is the little cut that we're going to take out so we can align Sandpiper at this location here. This is a commercial property. We're hoping for a commercial venture. One of the bid people that basically underbid the property, even though we did request it to come in at the appraised value, actually sent in another proposal. I did talk to him. I said, hold off until we get this solidified in terms of how we're going to accept a bid. He went ahead and sent it in anyway, so we kind of know the property is valuable, and we have another property. The other bid person is also willing to put another bid in, which we'll talk about that bid process in a minute. The second property, this is the FBO building over at the airport. It's a smaller piece of property. It's only 0.09 acres, but it also includes the fuel for the at the airport that's of course sold for the airplanes. This one, it kind of stands on its own. It's a decent building. It does need a little bit of work from what we understand, but the options are the ability to possibly put in a small restaurant or something that would serve the commuters or people that are coming in to visit the Central Florida area. It's very, we have an opportunity to do something unique with the property, but we aren't going to do it. Somebody else would end up needing to do that. One of the things that I wanted to point out with this slide here, this is the FBO building here. There is parking along the side here, but that is parking for the entire airport. So whoever gets it would probably end up having to talk to the airport HOA in regards to designating a few different spots for the building itself. But anybody that really parks along here would probably be for this area anyway, because each of the hangars has their own parking either inside or right next to it or right in front. So this is, there's opportunity. I believe there's about 30 parking spaces along this area here. The third property is the airport runway, which is, it's actually adjacent to it. It's basically an unusable, unsaleable property because it's used for recovery for an airplane. You can't put anything on it. You can't put Burma shave signs on it. You can't really put anything on the property because it is used for recovery issues for takeoff and landing. This is one that I'm not recommending that we actually put out for sale. That might be something we can talk to the HOA, the board for the airport itself about taking over. The third property is one that we identified just a few weeks ago. This is down off of 8th Street in Highland. It's kind of an odd, it's a building that we actually took over from Orange County. It does have, it's like a maintenance building. There's some offices in here. This is actually a barn style with some equipment in it. There is drainage in the back side that actually comes out, and there is a connection feature here that's 25 feet wide. The way we're looking at it, though, this is in the mixed-use downtown district, which would allow for, if we took the full length of the property from here to here, it's a little over 300 feet, which would allow for a potential sale and use of the property for affordable or workforce housing. You could probably get about 6 lots there, or a townhome development, but it is limited to 5 units per acre, which is about 6 units. The fuel station that the city uses is on this side. There are different multifamily developments around the area, so it could lend itself to a decent little development and bring a few more residents in the downtown area. So, as I mentioned, we have done property appraisals on 3 of those properties. The fourth one, we would have to do an appraisal for, just so we at least know the valuation. That is something that we need to talk with once we get any bids or potential sales in for the property. That any property that we get bids on, we obviously would bring back to City Council for consideration. And a few of these things that the properties that we have, staff is recommending, like I mentioned, 3 of the properties that we put on the city's website for sale. And I'm recommending a 3-week period. A lot of times when you get into, especially for the Park Avenue Sandpiper site, that's $1 million property. And it does take people a little bit of time to put together $1 million to come in and say, hey, I can buy this in 30 to 60 days. In order to buy. The FBO property, not as much. That's worth about, I believe the appraisal price is $400,000 or so. The strip of property next to the airport, it came in at appraised prices at $141,000, but you can't do anything with it. This one, the assessed value, I believe we had, I think it was about 400,000 or so. Sorry, I've got to
30,
retract that.
30-something
I,
thousand.
200,000 or
Was it
so.
that much?
But even with that, if you separate that into 5 or 6 lots, each of those segmented out,
Because
and again.
all the buildings on there have to be scraped off.
Yes,
They're-
yeah. The only thing we don't have on this property, and because it has been used for machineries, we would need to do, before we probably put out for sale, an environmental 1, possibly environmental 2, depending on what we come up with.
Well, in that case, I mean, that's in the brownfield designation area, correct? Because that would be attractive for, if you are trying to seek someone to do affordable type housing, they benefit the most in terms of incentives for that type of property.
Correct, yeah, that
since
might
it's
be,
in
that might be a
designation.
potential for brownfield funding.
But they've suspended that now, so I'm not.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll come back, but yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Let's see, any bid proposals, again, we direct those to city staff as described, and we develop these bid papers, which we pretty much already have for 3 of the properties. This 4th one, I developed the bid properties for that. Would not need to be put out on Demand Star, we just accept the bids, and I'd consider them private until we actually get the bid submittal time is completed, and then bring those to city council. And the reason for that, the reason I'm recommending that is that I don't want to get into that stage where somebody says, well, I heard so-and-so develop or put in a bid. How much is that? Well, I'm going to outbid it by $5. You know, so we want to make this a valuable bid process, but get it so that you're the decision maker, not somebody going back and forth on a bid where we get these bid wars for $5, $10, $20, something like that. But in consideration for that, obviously there's the highest bid is always a big consideration. But the other parts that I put together, and this is in the staff report, is the proposed use itself, especially for this property. What do we want on the property? The other one is for the Sandpiper property. Obviously, that's going to be commercial because it's got a commercial land use and zoning. And it also has water and sewer available for it. So the type of development, the development timeline. We don't want, if we're going to sell these properties, I'd want something developed on it sooner than later instead of somebody sitting on it for 5 or 10 years and then selling it because it's worth a lot more. And then among the other considerations, we might have somebody come in that says, hey, I've got this plan, and they present a plan with their bid documents that shows townhomes or single-family homes. Or on the Sandpiper property, they've already got a layout for a potential commercial development with either strip commercial or something like that. So that's one of those things that I wanted to make sure that we put those in the bid documents so that it allows somebody to expand on their bid than just giving us a piece of paper saying this is, I want to submit this for $100,000 or $500,000 or whatever the cost is. So what we're looking for, obviously, is to, number one, is declare all 4 properties surplus, 2 of which we've already, or 1 of which we already did, but I want to re-emphasize that. And then the other part is to approve the sale process so that we can do this in-house versus having to do a Demand Star. And we just put it on the city's website for a 3-week period, set the date, and everything has to be in by 4 o'clock on this date, and then we'll set it up for to bring it back to city council for a decision.
Yeah, let me start with the last property there. There's a strip along, on that left side. Is that not part of the?
Yeah, this is, actually, you're right. The Highland Avenue, I believe this is about 60 feet, and then it widens out. So this is, and the building, from what it looks like, is actually on the road right away. So that would be something to consider, that we control the road right away. This is all local road. So we might want to consider vacating a portion of that road right away and make it part of this property, which would possibly allow an extra unit. I've got to look at and see how much property that could actually work out to be.
And in the back is where it's a big ditch. It's got to be 10, 12 feet deep.
Yeah, and it's
which we
overgrown.
We'd like to get that filled in with a pipe versus that,
Yep.
which would give you some additional land as well. 'Cause
And I've got to verify, I believe this is still in the Martin Pond drainage area. So this drainage actually, I think, works more to catch water coming down here. But if we channel that into the drainage to go to Martin Pond, that would free up this property for developable property also, possibly put in a small park for the area. We got options.
As far as the FBO, I believe, and I could stand corrected, but I believe that you cannot build a three-story building there because of its proximity to the runway.
More than likely correct.
And so that kind of rules out some of the things I know were being proposed and floated around that I heard. And as you said, I think not just price, but value, what's brought to the table. I think we really need to consider that, because I know some of the different ones that have proposed some of the things could really be a long-term benefit.
Sure.
For the community as a whole, educational, job-wise. There's some great things there. So I want to make sure we really look at that rather than just take.
First come, first served.
Yeah,
More
because
than
we
an
could get
kind of
more
an RFP,
dollars but
RFQ,
lose.
kind of some balance between
Yeah.
an RFP
I'd like to
and
see a
RFQ.
cafe out there myself, something,
And-
I'd like to see a cafe with some,
Yeah, that would serve the people out there. That strip across the way, of course, that used to be, the FBO used to be on the other side of the runway. When I flew in here in '91, when I was getting my instrument rating, we actually squeaked in there on the short runway before it was extended. And it used to be there. So as you said, that's unusable over there. I don't know if the possibility of, or thinking about tying those two properties together, so, if the value is in one, they take the other. I do know that at one point the board had expressed interest themselves in that. I think there was concern from past things that had happened out there that there was maybe there were some shenanigans going on and that being used against them. So I think that for their comfort level, they may have interest in that as well. But again, it's not usable. So if there's a way to tie those together, it might be a better way if that's what we're wanting to do, to divulge ourselves of those. The other,
While you're on that subject, one of the things that Edward and I were talking about is maybe we take the property along the runway and try to swap it with the homeowners for some of the parking. Because right now, there's not any dedicated parking for the FBO, so maybe we swap that strip out for some of the parking that's right there next to it,
and that was something that I had thought in the past. It's a possible bargaining chip for
Yes.
what are things that would advantage the city and the airport as well. And one of the things, again, from the business community is to be able to extend that runway. And I know that's been talked about a lot. If there was a way that if we did do some type of a deal, that's part of that incentive, that they would agree with that process. There's three groups.
Entities, yes.
It's crazy to try and work with, but there's the main one there. And if we can get agreement from them that as we're able to do that, of course, the funding issue is another thing, but it could really help develop that. It would protect our aviary community, because it wouldn't become a regional airport, but it would expand it for business travel, especially small jets, which can be very enticing to some higher level business development. And that's just a big one. I've heard it over and over and over. So I think that we really need to consider that piece as utilizing that, what's going to be a win-win for us all. And my last question on this is, of course, part of our fiscal picture, why are we getting rid of these particular properties? Are we trying to continue to liquidate all city-owned properties? It's one thing they're not making more of is land. God kind of stopped that a long time ago. So I know that I just want to make sure that we're not doing it just for quick money. At the same time, we know that land that's not getting tax revenue, there's a loss on that side too. So I guess I'm not sure these particular ones. I know the FBO, because that's something we want somebody else to deal with that. We don't need to be in that business.
I would say there's some properties that we want to buy, but I'd rather not,
Okay.
because we might not want to be the one leading the charge to buy it. So we've got 3 or 4 pieces of property we've identified.
Okay.
Obviously, we'd have to come back to city council, but, rather than bringing up the specific properties, but we do have some ideas. But, it's just, we think
So
it's
we're not
surplus.
just selling to
Oh,
Band-Aid
no.
things.
It's got nothing to do with, FBO, we want to get out of that business.
Right.
I think Sandpiper, we'll have some money that we can then put the stoplight there.
Yeah.
We realign the roads. I think that's, perfect. There's probably, I could see us surplusing the property across the street from the Sandpiper property as well, the front of the water plant. There's a couple acres there that we could probably surplus.
And
But
can we tie that to finishing that project on Sandpiper? Because that's a real bad intersection there.
Yeah,
So if we do sell that, it doesn't just kind of go into that.
Right, no. I
General
think
fund
that's the
buyback.
that's the whole intent, I
Okay.
think, for, you know, so, other than that, I can't think of anything else
No, I think it's important to realize or to make sure that everybody's aware. When we looked at these from a surplus standpoint, we also looked at our 5 and 10-year plan to make sure that this is not an area, and one of them, I'll give you an example, is across from the fuel island. We've talked about it with Public Works. You know, since some of our crews were housed out of this area for a long time, we had the flood in there, the sewer backup, the problem or whatever, so all of that has to be torn out. And rather than build back there for our crews, they were able to relocate to Cleveland, and actually, the crews are all where their equipment and everything is. It makes more sense that they're housed out of where everybody else is housed out of, instead of grounds and streets were here. And as you know, grounds went to recreation, and streets went kind of they're down at Cleveland. So we kind of looked at the long term, to make sure that we're not, Commissioner, as you point out, to make sure that are we selling something that we know in a 5-year, 10-year period that we're going to need for expansion or development or for something for the city. So we looked at that too. So no,
Okay.
we're not just selling all land. We're just looking at those areas where we can, like the FBO, the area on 8th Street, and then the Sandpiper with the intersection and everything that we need to do. So,
Thanks.
Commissioner Smith?
Well, I think I've had several discussions about the property already, and I'm in favor. I do have a question in reference to the Sandpiper location. On the opposite corner, where the convenience store used to be, right on that corner, there's a little fenced-in area with some kind of utilities or something coming up out of the ground that's constantly being ran into by vehicles. Exactly what is that?
I honestly don't know.
Right on that corner, is that part of at one point, irrigation?
It might be,
I
it
don't
might be
think
the
it's
irrigation.
irrigation.
There's like
Public
2 or
Works
3
something.
other
It's-
things, yeah.
It's something other than irrigation.
No, you're right, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe when we are lining that street, maybe we need to look at that, because, I mean, there have been several accidents, and each time they've torn that area up, and,
It looks
so-
terrible.
well, and Commissioner, we do also have, that's under code enforcement. It does have a code enforcement violation for that particular area you're talking about, is also included in that code enforcement violation for them to clean that up, fix that, cap that, clean that up. So it is under code enforcement review right now.
Okay, because
so-
even right now, from the last vehicle accident, the fence is still laying down.
Exactly. So code enforcement's really been, kind of hounding them to get that cleaned up.
A good part with the realignment, they'll actually add about 20 feet.
So to move it away from there
Yes,
some?
sir.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
Sounds good. That needs to be done. All right, so other than that, I'm fine with what we're talking about doing. I like the idea of using the piece of land at the airport that's not billable as leverage for something else in order to help benefit the city and that spot that we're trying to sell there.
Commissioner Becker?
So would selling of the airport property completely divest us from airport operations?
Yes, it would, Commissioner.
Now, airport operations right now, is that pretty much budget neutral?
No, actually, that fund has been struggling. We just, if you recall, we just had a $75,000 repair that we had to make. So the fuel is not keeping up with, we get a little bit of rental income from the facility and then the fuel sales, but it's tough. It's tough to stay competitive with the fuel sales and the airport be self-sustaining or self-funding, and it's not currently.
Right, because I know when we first came on council, I mean, it was kind of one of those deals where we may have taken like a $8,000 loss or something like that, but relatively speaking, it was pretty, it
I think
paid
it's a
for
lot more than
itself.
that, because we were paying
Okay.
the guy $20,000 a year, which we cut him loose, so no, it was
Right.
losing more than 20, I guarantee you.
Well, until we had to redo the fuel islands there, it was holding its own.
Yeah, but
And we
that
adjusted,
makes-
but then, once that happened, it's,
But the employee wasn't in that.
Well, and also, the other thing we had too, Commissioner, keep in mind, a lot of the expenditures were not going through that fund either.
Right, yeah.
A lot of the maintenance, a lot of the upkeep, and all of that, we were, having to kind of supplement with general fund dollars as well.
So with all that said, then
and
what's-
it needs a lot of improvement now. I mean, there are lots of things that we need to, we've, as you know, we had to repair windows, we had to do some carpet upgrades and stuff, and it needs some other things as well. And it's just not, it doesn't sustain the fuel sales and the lease doesn't
Okay.
sustain enough. to
Yeah, and
maintain.
that was my question. I mean, if it was something where it was self-sustaining,
Oh, absolutely.
let's hold on to it because the value around that area, the industrial, some of these big logo corporate attraction of an airport like that might be, our kind of 3 to 5 year plan, that land might appraise a lot more than, but if we're taking a significant loss and we have some capital expenditures that we would have to do on that property anyways, then I'm for it. In terms of the Sandpiper property, so, and this may be a question for you, Michael, what's the latitude that we have when those bids come in, or the offers come in, I should say, in terms of what we can decide on? And let me give you a little bit of background about why I'm asking the question. When I picked up the Apopka chief 2 weeks ago, front and center looking at me as another dollar store coming into Apopka, right? And it'd be one thing for us to list the property for sale, and it's, if we have concepts that go onto the property, or can we consider concepts when they are bidding the piece of property? Put it that way.
Aside from putting restrictive covenants on the property, which would be running with the land to prohibit certain uses, or ending up with certain reverter clauses, which I wouldn't advise against, I don't think we can necessarily specifically state, we're not going to sell it unless you develop this as A, B, or C. It's a private property owner who's going to come in to purchase and is going to be able to develop the property pursuant to what the zoning and land use allow for it. Or if they intend to amend it, then we'll be able to review it as part of their development application. But aside from perhaps putting certain restrictive covenants on the property, and having that be the contingent to whatever contract we enter for the sale of the property, I can't see any other specific restrictions.
And I misspoke. I didn't mean a restriction necessarily, but if we have 3 offers, let's say, and all 3 offers come in for the ask price, they're all equally, they bid to our appraised value. One person says, I want to do this, one person says, I want to do this, one person says, I want to do a third thing. Can we take into consideration what their concept for that piece of property is and determining who we would want to award that contract to?
Yes, when it comes to real property, cities in Florida have great latitude on how to dispose and sell of them. So if the case is that the offers that are being presented, the city can take into account the price and the prospective development in making its determination.
Well, to
there
take-
isn't any set guidelines that you must accept this bid. There's no, as I said, the Attorney General's opinions that are out there when it comes to statutes. We have great flexibility in the sale of our real estate.
To take Commissioner Becker's one step farther, so if we had somebody that offered $1 million, and it's everything we wanted, whatever that is, and we had somebody offer the 1.2 million, and he says, yeah, I'm looking for $1. I think I've got a dollar store already ready to go. Could we take the lower bid?
Yes, we are not bound by
the price. Okay,
the bid.
Okay.
We're selling the property as if we were a private property owner selling the property
Well,
to
no, I mean, if we're a private property owner, I think you'd sell it for the highest bid, period.
if you wish, but also if there are certain uses that are going to be done on the property, we could take what would be the most productive use of the land.
Okay. And that's my interest. I just want to have
Yeah,
a
no,
lot of
I'm with you,
latitude
right.
to be able to make that decision based off of a conceptual plan for the property.
Well, when I read the report, it says the highest bid, proposed use, type of development, and development timeline, that all these could be considerations in purchase of price. So that's why I'm agreeing.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I just, with that type of stuff, I just want to make sure that verbally it's in the record. I want to make sure that there's head nodding and all that sort of stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, and again, not to derail and sidetrack the conversation, but obviously this proliferation of dollar stores is a hot topic across the entire country. We have certain states, certain cities trying to do zoning restrictions on these types of properties. I would love to have that conversation amongst us to see what the will of the council is at some point, but that's a conversation for a different day. But it's, at the end of the day, these things wouldn't be thriving if people didn't frequent them here in Apopka either. So I just, it's exhausting. Anyway.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Okay, well, look, need two motions. One, I need a motion to declare all 4 properties as surplus to allow for the sale.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Bankson.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously.
Hey, on the, on the one property on 8th, we could just claim adverse possession on ourselves, right?
Yeah.
For maintaining that structure.
Okay, I need a second motion to approve the sale process for city-owned properties.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Smith,
Second.
second by Commissioner Becker. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. All right. Ordinance number 2796. Susan?
Okay. Ordinance number 2796. An ordinance of the City of Apopka, Florida, amending the future land use element of the Apopka Comprehensive Plan of the City of Apopka, changing the future land use designation from county low-density residential to city low-density residential for certain real property located north of West 12th Street and east of South Hawthorne Avenue, comprising .41 acres more or less and owned by Beckwood Real Estate Development LLC, providing for severability and for an effective date.
Bobby, any changes? No changes. Okay. Anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? Close the public hearing. Look for a motion to adopt ordinance number 2796.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Smith.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Bankson. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Next up, ordinance number 2797.
Okay, ordinance number 2797. An ordinance of the City of Apopka, Florida, changing the zoning from T Transitional District to RSF-1B Single Family Residential District, Large Lot, for certain real property located north of West 12th Street and east of South Hawthorne Avenue, comprising .041 acres more or less and owned by Beckwood Real Estate Development LLC, providing for severability and providing for an effective date.
Bobby, any changes? No changes. Anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Look for a motion to adopt ordinance number 2797.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner
Second.
Bankson, second by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Next up, ordinance number 2804.
Ordinance number 2804. An ordinance of the City of Apopka, Florida, to extend its territorial and municipal limits to annex pursuant to Section 171.044 Florida statutes, the hereinafter described public right-of-way known as Shepherd Avenue, situated and being in Orange County, Florida, and comprised of approximately .99 acres owned by Orange County Board of County Commissioners, and providing for directions to the city clerk, severability, conflicts, and an effective date.
Any changes, Bobby? Okay. Anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? Okay, if not, we'll close the public hearing. Look for a motion to adopt ordinance number 2804.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Smith,
Second.
second by Commissioner Becker. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Next up, ordinance number 2805.
Ordinance number 2805, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Apopka, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Apopka by amending Part 3, Land Development Code, Article 2, Administration, Section 2.5.1, Discretionary Approvals, by amending Part 3, Article 2, Section 2.5.4, Permits, by amending Part 3, Article 3, Zoning Districts, Section 3.2.3, Agricultural District, by amending Part 3, Article 3, Section 3.5.3, IL, Light Industrial District, by amending Part 3, Article 3, Section 3.5.4, IH, Heavy Industrial District, by amending Part 3, Article 4, Use Regulations, Table 4.2.2C, by amending Part 3, Article 4, Section 4.2.3, Standards Specific to Principal Uses, by amending Part 3, Article 5, Development Standards, Section 5.3.2, Applicability, by amending Part 3, Article 5, Section 5.6.2, Applicability, by amending Part 3, Article 5, Section 5.13.2, Minimum Street Design and Construction Standards, by amending Part 3, Article 5, Section 5.13.4 streets by amending Part 3, Appendix A, mixed-use Kelly Park interchange, MUKPI, form-based code. F, permitted uses by amending Part 3, Appendix A, mixed-use Kelly Park interchange, MUKPI, form-based code O, signs, providing for codification, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, and providing an effective date. Okay.
Okay, no changes, Jim? Okay, anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? If not, we'll close the public hearing, look for a motion to approve ordinance number 2805.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Bankson,
Second.
second by Commissioner Becker. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Next up, Resolution 2020-35.
Okay, Resolution 2020-35. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Apopka, Florida, amending the budget for fiscal year beginning October 1, 2019 and ending September 30th, 2020, or 2020, providing for a budget amendment.
Good
Jamie?
afternoon, Commissioners and Mayor. Jamie Roberson, Finance Director. This is the final budget amendment for fiscal year 2020. It is an amendment that includes changes in funding and appropriations for the COPS grant. During fiscal year 20, grant proceeds were over budgeted, and this adjustment is to accommodate and change the funding source to a general fund transfer to allow the coverage of the shortfall in grant proceeds and total appropriations for the COPS grant. As of the start of fiscal year 2020, there was only $19,755 available in the grant to cover the 5 officers assigned to the grant for fiscal year 20. Due to the grant agreement, once proceeds are exhausted, it is the responsibility of the city to retain these positions and cover funding. Therefore, the remaining funding for the year will need to come from the general fund, which is the funding source for all other officer positions. This grant program was housed in the grant fund, therefore a transfer in from general fund in the amount of $277,100 is needed to make the grant fund whole for the shortfall in the grant funding and total appropriations for the year.
Any questions for Jamie? Anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? If not, we'll close the public hearing, look for a motion to approve resolution number 2020-35.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Becker.
Second.
By Commissioner Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Next up, resolution 2020-36.
Resolution 2020-36. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Apopka, Florida, amending the budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2020 and ending September 30th, 2021, providing for a budget amendment.
Jamie?
This budget amendment is an actual fiscal year 2021 budget amendment, and it is for an item that was on the consent agenda. It's another FDOT sub-grant from the Department of Transportation in the amount of $9,513 for the Florida's Bicycle Pedestrian Focus Initiative Grant, which is located and managed by the Police Department.
Any questions for Jamie? Anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? If not, we'll close the public hearing, look for a motion to approve resolution 2020-36.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Smith,
Second.
second by Commissioner Becker. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. All right, City Council reports. Mr. Becker?
No, just wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving.
Good. Commissioner Smith?
A couple of items. First of all, I want to thank the mayor and the city for lighting up City Hall and our ponds blue in honor of World Diabetes Month. Very, very appreciative, and had a couple of individuals to even come out and take pictures and post them, let them know that Apopka supports. Also had a couple of parents that were leaving the sports field out on Puncan, and they're concerned about the darkness on Puncan Road after you turn off a Jason dwelling. There's no lights from, I guess that's from Jason dwelling to Vic Road. It's very dark along that roadway, and it's curvy. So it's very dangerous, and especially with it getting dark earlier, they'd like to know if we could do something about lighting up that roadway.
Is that county? I think that's a county road.
It's a county road.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yeah, we got it, that's where we have the sidewalk is us and the road is them. Yeah, I know.
All right, I'll pass that word on. And then my last comment is in reference to still our Deputy Chief of Police. We still want to know when we're going to fill that position. And lastly, happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Commissioner Langston.
Yeah, it's great to see the lights up in the park already, and people looking forward to some festive relief at the end of the year here. And so, happy, safe Thanksgiving to everyone.
Yes. Okay, cool. All right. Edward.
I do not have anything tonight,
Okay.
Mayor.
Michael.
Actually have nothing to report.
Geez, good, good. All right, Mayor's report. Got just a few things. Obviously, we should have in front of you a COVID, this is from Orange County. There's a free drive-through COVID-19 rapid testing site at Barnett Park, so not far away. So anybody that needs to get tested, it's free. So I know we've seen a big uptick in positive cases here, not only in Central Florida, but across the state. So anybody, just be sure they get it. It was on the weekly newsletters, also as a flash on our website. So keep that in mind.
Do they have to make an appointment?
No, no appointments.
Oh.
I'm almost sure. Yeah, no appointments necessary. No, yes, sir. So, and it's on our website as well. Just thought you'd want to know, there's Corvo has been about a year ago, decided to pull out their manufacturing from the Apopka site. We worked as hard as we could to try to keep them, but they're doing some reorganizations. They had two other big sites, one in Oregon and one in North Carolina, and they decided to leave the state as far as manufacturing. Still have the planning group, their engineers are still in Apopka, and then that's the higher valued employees. So we still got them, and we want to keep them as long as we can. We want to try to, we'd love to get them back at manufacturing as well. But in the meantime, there's a company here that's in Lockhart called Micros that's outgrown their facility to manufacture chips, and so they're taking up some of the space in the Corvo manufacturing side of the business. So it's good at moving some employees here, to Apopka. So trying to make lemonade out of lemons. So anyway, just thought, you'd like to know that. A couple other quick things. One, we're having a pension meeting tomorrow, but interesting enough, we've been hearing about that some of the costs we've been paying for our pension administration is higher than it should be. And so we've got them to, Prudential, who is our sponsor, has come back with about $100,000 a year savings. And so we could either take that or put it out to RFP. So $100,000 to our pension fund. So, I tell you what, we're squeezing every nickel we can. I know what Edward's trying, I'm trying, and all the department heads are, doing what we can, to make our dollars go farther. And so there's just another example, because obviously, at the end of the day, it's the city that pays, the management fee. And so we're excited about that. Shout out to Rob and his team. Our Mount Plymouth tower is up and running, kind of and now we're gonna take the other one down to get it resurfaced. But so Mount Plymouth is up, waiting on Lake County to put their equipment up on the tower. But so finally got that one up. So great work, Rob, and your team. And the last one, I think, is just mind-boggling for me. I don't know if you've seen it was in the Orlando Business Journal, but they just sold the Coke warehouse that's out by Goya. They sold that building for $71 million. $71 million, which is, as Edward and I said, that's $300,000 in ad valorem. So amazing. So here we, just think about that. 2 years ago, we weren't even really starting the construction. Now we've got a building that they just sold for $71 million. We're going to be able to collect $300,000 in ad valorem next year. So we're looking good, and we got a lot of opportunities out there at the airport. We had a meeting today with the folks, and looking to ramp that up quickly. So we're excited about our opportunities.
And I know it's past my time, but that just reminded me of some of the things I've been looking at. I passed along to Ed. Just where technology is, we're moving within the next 10 years to air taxis, autonomous air taxis, these different things. This is something I brought up down downtown Orlando at the meeting. But Apopka really can be a leader there. I was talking with someone about the technology, and the amount of towers that we have in the area lend itself towards that as well, including the drones, and as they have delivery drones, things like that. And so, I just encourage some of the ones there to kind of look into that direction. That's something that industry-wise, it's a cutting-edge thing, and if we can get a foothold on that and bring some of that to Apopka area, it could really benefit us in the long term. We can become the experts in that. That will benefit our own people who'll have the knowledge, and other cities will say, how did you do this? So, anything that we can do, of course, I like to fly and it shows. So, but I think that's a great emerging industry.
Awesome. Thank you. Everybody have a happy Thanksgiving.